They have a little swagger offensively. Don't let them in the game. Snap their souls early, get a lead, and remind them they're on the road, frigid temperatures, their season's going nowhere. Don't give them hope. So the second key to me would be big first quarter, big first half. Do not get behind against the freaking Commanders. Get a lead, snap them out, and go home. That's it.
Snapping souls. I've never heard that before. Have you snapped a soul, Mutt? Can you tell us more about it?
Certainly have not, no. My wife looks at me and her soul is snapped every day at this point. Working out of my basement. Don't give them life. God, it's the Commanders. It's the blah bowl. Don't give them life. And I'll tell you what, when I had the big plays are going to be killer if they make big plays downfield. Like a Mac pick six early. Oh, a Mac pick six on the secondary. Commanders are celebrating, paper bags on people's heads in the stands. That might get the boo birds out of Gillette. Try to avoid the boo birds in the first half. Please.
God, I think you just snapped someone's soul listening to this. That was terrible.
Pat's Interference is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, a happy Friday to you and yours. We get ready for Patriots Commanders here in Pat's Interference, brought to you by FanDuel, exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. And if we're being totally honest, Sunday has to be the blah bowl. And so to prepare for the blah bowl, again, 2-6 Patriots, 3-4 Commanders, I thought of all the blah people in my life, and I said, I can't deal with any of them. I need some spice in here. I need some energy. So, of course, I think my man, Mutt. It's been a while. Welcome back.
What's up, buddy? It is the blah bowl. I mean, you sent me a rundown for this podcast. And to your credit, I do a handful of podcasts. Nobody sends a rundown quite like Callahan and prepares you for what you're going to talk about down to the minute. Like if I screw up something today, it's my fault, not Callahan's fault. When you sent this, I was like, what do I really have to say about this game? I do a Friday column at mutstack.com. I didn't write about the Patriots today because I don't know what to write. It's 2-6. It's nothing. So I look forward to seeing you pull out of me some Patriots thoughts on a game that I don't have a lot of interesting takes on until you start talking here today.
Well, look, we just heard the starting gun go off, and we are already stumbling out of the blocks and giving people a reason not to listen. The game's going to be boring. Mutt has nothing to say. He does have a Mutt stack, though, and we were just chatting, and you revealed up to nearly 3,000 subscribers. So if you are listening to this and you're not among them, you are missing out. And this is not any sort of favor to a friend or shilling in any kind of way. I read that every single Friday morning, and I learned something new about Boston sports media or horse racing, which is not hard when I know nothing about sports horse racing. But it's very interesting. You're going to find distinct takes, even if Mutt brought none today. So the plan is to discuss the blah bowl because, it's the middle of the season. We're not abandoning, serious football analysis here in this podcast. But when I was thinking about column topics this week, I jumped to the future, like I know a lot of fans want to, and not in the free agency or draft sense, but Belichick to the Commanders. So we'll talk about that when the Patriots have the ball, Commanders have the ball, 3-2-1 breakdown, all of that. But first, we must always start with spit it out. What is this game about for Patriots in 30 seconds?
This game is about making sure the team still believes in their coach. Like trade deadline happens, trade deadline comes and goes, nothing happens. Other teams made moves. Other teams have punted. The Patriots stayed the same. There's some talk about Belichick being traded. We'll get to that. His contract going forward. The future of this team. If they still believe in their coach and still have buy-in to their coach, they show up with a requisite effort Sunday against a blah Commanders team. That's what the word for me, the phrase is buy in. Do they still buy in? We'll see in the effort they give on Sunday against the Commanders.
I like this. And you know what? To be fair to the Patriots, it's been a stinky season. We've covered this, I don't know how many different ways. The blah is really mostly with the Commanders. Like I look at this roster and go, if they need a graphic for Sunday Night Football and next week it's Commanders Cowboys, like who's going in the Commander? Is it Terry McLaurin? Like Chase Young is gone. Montez Sweat is gone. And this has been true for years when your quarterback is Sam Howell and Ryan Fitzpatrick. And look, I went to one of the most recent Commanders Patriots games back in 2007, was there during that magical season. Jason Campbell, as I was watching those highlights again, was playing quarterback. They have nothing down there to excite you. As for me, what this game is about for the Patriots is not just how boring and spectacularly boring the Commanders are. It's their receivers. Like Kendrick Bourne's out. Devontae Parker has not been ruled out yet with a concussion. But if you're a Tyquan Thornton believer, now's the time. Kayshon Boutte, people have been in my mentions about him all season, even though he's a professional healthy scratch. Now's the time to show what he's got. And DeMario Douglas, near and dear to our hearts. But like this, he needs to have a big game if they want to win on Sunday.
So just think about what you said out loud on November 3rd, 2023. Demario Pop Douglas needs to have a big game for the Patriots to win on Sunday. That, in a nutshell, sums up where we have gotten to with the Patriots here in 2023.
It is. All right, well, let's look at 2024 here for a second,
Sure.
because I got to tell you, a couple of weeks ago, I had the thought of like, okay, if this season really goes this way, what are we going to talk about? Buffalo, it's going to be tough. Miami will be fun, but they usually lose down there. Then we get Washington, Germany, and then the bye. How can I map out what I want to write about in the next few weeks? And I landed on Washington. I'm thinking, whoa, could Bill coach the Commanders if this season goes the way it is in 2024? I'm going to hold on to that one. I'm going to run it Wednesday or Thursday. It'll be a big talker. I even said it on the podcast. Lo and behold, I can't get through Wednesday morning without Mike Florio taking an idea that anyone could have had, even a dope like me, as I just documented, saying the thing, which then leads the rest of us in the media to do what we do best, which is say the thing because a guy said a thing and follow up, and it just expands and it becomes this mushroom cloud of conversation. So by the time I got to go to TV Wednesday night, it's in the A block. It's the first thing, and my column has been up for 2 hours. When I say that, we'll get to the reasons here, but when that first notion, Bill with a little W over his right breast on the polo shirt, and he's got the visor with the W up top. What do you think about that?
I can visualize it. I can see all of it. I read your column. I read what Florio had to say, which was, like you said, just sort of, hey, I heard something this weekend. I could see it. I'd be okay with it. Where my brain starts to break down is the idea of the Krafts going through with it. We can talk about why it's going to work, why it's not going to work. But from a football standpoint, organizationally, if they think Mayo's the guy, or they've picked it, Ben Johnson, like if they know who the next coach is and think they can extract massive value as part of a Bill Belichick trade, they should and could do it. Where I get stuck is them being willing to pull the trigger when it comes to nut cutting time. That's where my brain stops working on this deal.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't cover that too thoroughly on the Kraft. And you only have so much space in a newspaper, which is a lame excuse in November now, the year of our Lord 2023. But here we are. And it was an angle, again, that I thought of a while ago. Mike Florio bringing it up started the rest of that kind of avalanche. And the reasons why it would work, honestly, are some of the reasons why it wouldn't work. And it's ownership, but on the other side. So Washington bought over the summer. It's a group led by Josh Harris, who's a co-owner, managing partner of the 76ers. Magic Johnson's in there somewhere. Big, rich group, bought them for over $6 billion. What rich new owners like to do are three things. One, ingratiate themselves with fans. Two, hire their own people. And three, spend gobs of money. And when you have a coach like Ron Rivera, who's in year 4, year 5, sub 500 record, GM Martin Mayhew, third year, not great. It's very easy to see them clean house, especially when they traded 2 of their best pass rushers at the trade deadline. So Belichick comes in, he's the splash, which new owners want. They spend as much money as he wants to fill both of those jobs. And he looks at this and goes, if things go south in New England, I can go there for 2 years at least, get Don Shula's record, and get out of town. Not to mention, go home. But he's an Annapolis, Maryland native. The idea of the new ownership, do you see that as being more of a pro or con as we make this list of why Belichick could be in Washington next year?
Massive pro. Massive pro. I go back, was it David Tepper when he bought Carolina, like wanted to make a splash, and Josh McDaniels was famously wanted to go interview for the Panthers job, and he couldn't because Bill had him do the TPS reports, had to stick around. He missed the interview, and he sits down with Matt Rule at a diner and is immediately sold on this next star coach. Now, it turns out Matt Rule is a very good college coach, terrible NFL coach, from what I can tell. They want to, these new owners, put their own signature on it. What better in Washington, where the thing is an absolute disaster from PR to fans to media coverage, all of it, than bringing in Bill Belichick to coach out the final days of his career, break Shula's record, to your point, but also it's such a sellable thing. If you're the Commanders and have been down in the dumps, Bill Belichick, who those Commanders fans saw dominate them years ago when a New York Giants defensive coaching situation, it's very sellable. And he brings in his Patriots culture. He's got Josh McDaniels now available to come back and run the offense. Dave Ziegler is out there from Vegas. He's available. It all makes sense. It's a plus to me that Harris and company bought it because they want to put their own spin on it. And bringing Belichick back to Washington, bring him home, like you said, that's their own spin on it. I think it helps that it's new ownership. And by the way, big money, like you said.
Yeah, big money. He gets whatever he wants. And you're relevant in a way that Washington, frankly, has not been, aside from Daniel Snyder and all of the I don't know, just problems, to put it very lightly, that he generated and created and led to headlines, and then eventually him basically getting forced out. So the Commanders become a talking point in that town, in which they apparently have not been for folks in DC for a very long time. Now, there is the issue of the stadium facilities, like what's Belichick's level of interest. And I want to say this too, because people will jump on this as the media trying to get Bill Belichick out, as if that's not just an erroneous amount of credit to give us, because Robert Kraft is going to do what he wants and say for Bill Belichick. No one is rooting for him to leave. He's one of the most interesting main characters in NFL history. That's part of the reason why I think Washington could want him. But if this season goes as it's tracking to go, to a 4-13 finish, or 5-12, or 6-11, again, I say, as I did a couple of weeks ago, a head coach or a GM that wins 45% of his games over a 4-year span without a playoff win just does not survive in the NFL, let alone when you're responsible for all of the poor drafts and no playoff wins in 5 years, as Belichick has been. It's just kind of a natural conclusion for sometimes you just get to the end of the run.
Okay, so we've all seen the Patriots struggle to score this season. That has been no secret. But I have something new for you. And that is the fact that you at home, or walking the dog, or at the gym, or grocery shopping, you yourself can score this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. Again, $150 if you pick a team and that team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, you've heard me talk about them a lot. There is no better time than right now to get in on the action, because the app is super easy to use. And if you don't like picking straight up winners, you could go with point spreads or player props, over unders, and tons more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston and open up the NFL season on your terms with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You mentioned the Krafts, though. So why can't you see them pulling the trigger as we kind of lay the landscape here?
I think they want Bill to end his career here, and I think they want Bill to get the Shula record here. And I think there's a scar left, and maybe still an open scar and an open wound for the way the Brady thing fell apart at the end. Like they've tried to mend that fence. I mean, a very impromptu celebrating Brady at halftime. We're going to tease next year on 6/12. It all felt like they were trying to get back into good grace with Brady and the fan base, because the fan base knows they screwed up the Brady thing. And even if Bill goes on to fail in Washington, there's going to be people who said, why didn't he get to stay on here? And I think because of the way the Brady thing ended, they don't want the same sort of breakup with Bill Belichick. And I understand the Krafts want to win. I'm sure they're hurt by the fact their team is not really relevant right now on the national scale. Bob Kraft, the Krafts, I'm sure love having that seat at the big boy table in the NFL. They don't right now because of the state of their team. I don't think they have the stomach for it. Maybe I'll be proven wrong here, and the Krafts decide we can get a good haul for Bill. We can fire. I think the Brady thing leaves them in a spot where they're going to let Bill sort of play out the string to the point where it have to be really, real. Maybe it's 2 or 3 wins is that number, but 6, 7 wins. I can see them selling, hey, $100 million to spend. Belichick's, legacy, Shula's record. Let's bring him on back. I don't think the stomach for it, quite frankly.
And they could look around, if it is 6-11 and 7-10, and weigh this decision and go, is there anyone better out there? And a lot of people.
Mayo. I think you wrote about the time. Like, I think we all believe that they convinced Rod Mayo potentially with, and
yes,
I don't know if you can promise or not, but the carrot of you're the next head coach. And the guy turned down head coaching interviews. I don't think he did that willy-nilly and had no sort of like, hey, we like you here in New England. You could be the next guy. And is he ready to go? Like, do they think he's ready? Does he need 1 more year under Bill? Does he go to them and say, guys, it's been 2 years now. I need some sort of say. So the Mayo thing also factors in, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And that's why I thought, and I'm on the record, this podcast and elsewhere, saying I do think this is Belichick's last season here. Is you have an option in-house. It's not only just the record and the draft failures, and everything that's accompanied the last few years, Mac Jones, lack of development, yada, yada. It's that you have an option. Now, if it does get this bad, Gerard Mayo has a hand in that. It's certainly not as significant as Bill Belichick's, but it's hard to go from the rubble of a 5-12 season. Do you really want to pull out your first building block to start a new team? Now, the counter to that would be something very smart that Dominique Foxworth said this week on mutual friend Tommy Curran's podcast, that like, if you do move on from Belichick and Mayo and go to a totally different direction, the infrastructure of the last 24 years of how you draft, how you build, what this organization is about, the culture, everything goes out the door with you. And that takes a while to rebuild with a new coach coming in with his people, a new philosophy and everything, let alone everyone else who's been in the system, even in places like the video department or nutrition or scouting. Like, that's a big overhaul. Now, the thing about Kraft, though, I don't know if it's so much the stomach as if they'll realize whether or not they can successfully frame Belichick's exit as him wanting to leave or a mutual parting of the ways. Because you brought up Brady. And if you'll remember, the day that Tom Brady announced, hey, I'm leaving New England, Robert Kraft talked to every single person in the New England media and was like, this is his decision. We talked last night. This is how it went down. He wants to leave. He wants to leave. He wants to leave. I had to let him go. Not that Belichick made it just inhospitable for him the last couple of years. The contract extension, okay, the refusal to budge on certain personnel things, just the grading that he takes anyway on certain players over a long period of time. And so the Patriots scored that as a win. I think if the Krafts can get either Belichick to agree that, yeah, you make it known you want to get traded, or we're doing this in our both best interest, that's why I think it could happen, because he does have a contract. They could trade him for a draft pick. I think it maybe would be a second round pick, first round pick. I don't know. But I don't think it's so much the stomach as the framing that becomes interesting at the end, if it gets there.
But going back to what you just said, and I was laughing when you said, like, do you think the fan base believed I don't think the fan base bought that. I think they recognized in the reporting during and afterwards that Bill made it very hard for Brady to be here. The play for the race thing was unbelievable. Like, incentives for the greatest quarterback of all time is forced to hit certain stats to hit incentives. Like, I just don't think it worked there. And maybe you're right. Can the Krafts frame it where it's not a negative? I don't know. And if they, we'll get to the Commanders' offense here coming up. But if the defense sucks all year, can you hand it to Mayo? How do you frame that as, hey, defense wasn't good, bottom half DVOA, but here's the new head coach. In an offensive league, here's a defensive head coach.
So I mentioned early that new ownership could be both a reason why Belichick does go there. Here are the keys. Here's the freedom. We need to make a big splash. Here you go. Just come on south, come on home. Belichick also is, if he does intend to move on and keep coaching, and this is all working under the assumption that Bill Belichick, even at 71, wants to continue coaching. And I do believe he is, whether it's the Shula record or the man who has spent 49 out of those 71 years on earth coaching NFL football, just knows and feels like he needs football as much as any of us do need water or oxygen. Like, he was raised in a film room. This is a guy who needs the sport. And if he has the energy, he'll keep going. He's also going to take a very, very, very hard look at ownership in any other particular location because of his experience in Cleveland with Art Modell, where they tried to move the team. He got canned a year later. And the fact that he had a prior relationship with Kraft when he was assistant with the Patriots in the late 90s and comes back because he felt Kraft would give him the freedom. He thought Kraft was smart and would be able to be hands-off in a way Kraft wasn't when he was Parcells. Josh Harris and the 76ers over the last 10 years, if anyone's been paying attention to the NBA, no, that is a perpetual shit show. Like a very talented team that gets in the way. Sam Hinkie's process starts buffering. And so they bring in Brian Colangelo, who then has burner accounts. Oh, might be his wife's, probably were his, about everything going on with the team. He's gone. Alton Brand, come in for a year or two. Thanks for a cup of coffee. Daryl Morey's actually going to take over. Oh, and Daryl Morey brings in James Harden, who is now leaving and walking away and calling himself a system. Like, the Sixers, as entertaining as they've been, have not gotten to a conference finals. And so Bill might look at part of that, or deeper numbers, because there's always huge amount of back channeling with people in power and people with a lot of money, to go, I can't work for a guy like that. Because you see the consequences of unstable ownership just this week. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler got fired because in part they deserve to, but also because Mark Davis in Las Vegas went to dinner with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs and a couple other veteran players. And they told him, we're out. Culture's not good enough. And there's no way that any NFL head coach should be fired because a couple of players don't like him. And yet that's what happened. And that's what could happen in Washington if Josh Harris is anything like the owner he's been with the Sixers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Are there any other destinations? You wrote about the Commanders side of it. Any other teams make sense? Again, half a season ago, full off season, hirings, whatever. Any other teams make sense for a Belichick trade? Because again, I get it in theory. We'll see if the Krafts have the stomach to do it. Is it Commanders or bust? Or do you see other teams that could be better ownership fits for Bill as you look around the league?
The only one that I weighed, and again, things change. I mean, no one saw Josh McDaniels getting fired coming back from that game at Detroit, as bad as it was Chicago. And it's a history thing. It's still a Northeast. And it sounds ridiculous. Like if I was listening to this, I would hear, oh, Belichick's only going to stay in the Northeast because that's where he's from. He spent his career, and be like, that doesn't make any sense. But if you read Seth Wickersham's book, what a very interesting quote from Bill about Bill O'Brien going to Houston. Remember, 2014, he left and gets hired by the Texans, was he felt you need to be like the people who are rooting for you on Sundays. Like they need to identify with you or they'll reject you like a bad transplant. These are my words towards the end. And so he might look and say, I'm not going to LA with the Chargers, which also have some of the most dysfunctional ownership in the league. Vegas, I just covered. There's no way he's going to do that or go work for Tom Brady. Tampa Bay, not great ownership. You're in Tom Brady's shadow. And then you look at places like the Jets, he's not going back there. The Browns, he's not going back there. I think I'm missing one team, but it's really process of elimination. And geographic, considerations play a little bit in there, but I think it really is Washington or bust with the Bears, maybe as a backup. And yet their GM and head coach are only in year 2. So most times you get at least a third year with a new regime. And I think they probably will in Chicago.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So Washington's the best spot. They have the money. They have the ownership. I could see it. You could see it. The fact we're discussing it suggests that this thing has gone way off the tracks. This season, this stretch, the post Tom Brady Patriots, the fact we're here right now, that sort of sums up the entire thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, I said this on TV the other night. The reason we're talking about it is not only because we have the blah bowl on Sunday, but it's a guy said a thing, and now we are guys saying more things and reacting, and it builds out. So there's not hard reporting here at the center. But it is an interesting talking point that I think this is a legitimate possibility. That's why I wrote about it. It's not for clicks. It's not for entertainment.
Yeah.
But there is a balance of hot air here versus just it's really speculation that I think is deserved. But we all understand the reason this is happening is because a guy said a thing and the Patriots are worse and Belichick's been worse than anyone ever expected.
And by the way, the team, I think, and Belichick's part of this, like they use the media to get certain things out there.
Yes.
I think Bill in his contract, I think that came from certain sources, and Bill want to get things out and the Krafts want to get things out. I'll be curious. Do you know how this works now? We're talking on Friday. Sunday morning has become sort of a big news day, right? For Schefter or Rap Sheet. I'll be curious, given how public this has become. Cowherd talked about national story. Is there any sort of, do we get anything Sunday morning from a pro Bill source or a pro Kraft source that comes out to give us some more details, something more to chew on? Because this has become such a national talking point. I'll be very curious on Twitter and on ESPN Sunday morning if this becomes something bigger than just you and I and locally and a little bit of Florio talking about it.
And the reason I laugh about that is because the timing of that Sunday morning, of course, is to get you to watch NFL Countdown on ESPN.
Hand up.
Right. NFL Game Day on NFL Network. That's why they do it. And it's also a lot of quid pro quo at that level of insider reporting and whatnot, which is something that I could never do. Credit to them for having those sources being on your phone X amount of hours a day. I just wouldn't do it. But you also have to make some, compromises, I'll say, some related, I think, to your journalistic integrity, others just with what you can say and what you don't. And then part of that is, okay, I know so-and-so's not going to play on a Wednesday, but I won't say it until Sunday to protect that source, which is a lesser offense than I think just spouting out what an owner or a head coach would want you to say. But that's part of the game up there. And that's why Sunday is actually a big news day. So I said I'm on the record and we'll move on to the game. I think this is Belichick's last year. I don't know if he gets traded. I don't know if he walks. I don't know if he retires. I don't think he will, but I think you got to start over. What do you think happens at the end of the season with Belichick?
Can I say if it's, I think the real four wins or less is in the, I think he's gone in some capacity. So 4 wins or less, completely falls apart, players talking out, he's gone. The Krafts will have really no choice but to turn this thing over and start really the rip the entire Band-Aid off and start from scratch post Brady and Belichick. If they win 6, 7, 8, 9 games, he's back. He's back because they owe him a lot of money, and he's back because he's closing in on Shula and has a way to positively spin the end of the year. If he salvages it from a respect standpoint, 4 or less, he's gone in some way, shape, or form. That'd be my prediction.
So what about 5?
I think
he left out 5.
See, it's a great. Is it? There can be a good 5 or a bad 5. Like if it's
no.
Yes, if they
5 and 12
win
is 5 and 12.
If they win 3 in a row at the end of the year and Mac looks good and something clicks, maybe, but you 5. He's probably gone at 5 too. I said it. It's probably gone. It's probably 6. I'm changing my answer.
Okay.
It's got to be 6 wins. 6 wins.
I think I'm with you. Again, I could see Bill coming back.
What a lame answer, too. God, I suck. I don't know what. There's certain things when I'm betting on things or if I could pay in advance for certain information, I would do it. I would pay right now $100 to be able to sit in and know, is it Jonathan making the call? Is it Bob making the call? Like, how does that work out? How burned do they feel from the Brady thing? I don't have enough information. But in reading you and following the tea leaves, there's a certain threshold of, okay, if he doesn't get here, he's going to be gone. And you're probably right. 6 wins, not 4 wins, probably.
Only $100? That would be a Mutstack exclusive.
Buddy, Mutstack's doing very well. We're not fully employed right now, so $100. That's my limit right now.
I just talk about journalistic ethics. I don't know where the line is here, but I would pay a lot more for that. I don't know. I think I need to check with some professor that I never had. Anyway, what a note to end on. 5-12. Yeah, I think that'd be tough. The last 3 games, though, if you want to play that out, Broncos, Bills, Jets, at least by then you're still 4-2 in the division, presumably.
Well, that'd be wild if 4 of their 6 wins are in the division.
Yeah. God. All right, let's get on to football, shall we?
Yes.
Washington, 3-4, as I mentioned. Their last 4 games, a 38-31 loss at home to the Eagles. Before that, they lost 14-7 at the Giants. Week before that, win 24-16 at Atlanta. And on Thursday night, 4 weeks ago, they got housed at home by the Bears 40-20. Their other wins are over the Cardinals and Broncos. So basically, between the Falcons, Cardinals, and Broncos, this is a team that, if we were talking about the other football, is probably getting relegated, or all of those teams are at the end of the season. They are ranked 24th by DVOA, 22nd in offense, 26th on defense, 16th on special teams. So, folks, when I say blah ball, that is exactly what I mean. Again, they're ranking 22nd in offense, 26th in defense, 16th on special teams.
Okay, that's fine. You can say that, but it's not just the blah ball because of the Commanders. The Patriots are just a mere spot ahead of the Commanders in the DVOA, and they're 26th in offense, 12th in defense. They're carrying their own weight here in the blah ball, Callahan.
Trying to keep the people listening, Muppy. You're right. When the Patriots do have the ball, 24th on offense, 26th in passing, 19th in rushing. This is still a top 10 team by success rate on the ground, which means, again, they're staying on schedule. You're getting 4 yards or more in first down, at least 60% of the yards you need on second, and everything you need on third and fourth. They do that better than most offenses in the league. Of course, they're just not very explosive. Washington on defense, I mentioned 26 overall. They are 30th against the pass. That's 3rd worst in the entire league. 6th against the rush. They've lost their 2 best pass rushers, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, got dealt at the deadline. Their D tackles, though, are still very good. Jonathan Allen, Jerron Payne. They got long, lanky corners. Jack Del Rio is the defensive coordinator, play a lot of zone coverage. I hit on the receivers early, and I know it sounded ridiculous, but I'm just going to ask you, do you have faith in any of the following? Demario Douglas, Tyquan Thornton, or Kayshon Boutte to have a relatively big game?
Okay. Yeah, I guess Demario Douglas. He's the one guy that when you watch him make plays, he looks like a modern explosive NFL receiver. Like if he was on the Detroit Lions, he'd fit in with Josh Reynolds and Amon St. Brown. Like he would fit with that group. Tyquan Thornton's a healthy scratch as a former 2nd-round pick. We had to sit and watch George Pickens light it up on Thursday Night Football. A guy the Patriots could have had. They took Tyquan Thornton. Who's the other guy you mentioned? Boutte? No. The people texting you and DMing you and tweeting you about Kayshon Boutte. Preseason football doesn't count. It doesn't matter. He's not, I want to say good player. He's not an important player. So of those 3, yes, Pop Douglas, I enjoy watching him play. I like how they use him. I believe in him. But the guy throwing him the ball and I'm a Mac fan, has been rough to watch this year. But of those 3, Pop Douglas, yes. Long answer, yes.
Okay. And I said at the beginning, this comes down to them because they need to show up in a way that they have it. And Boutte gets a little bit more leash, I think, here. He also, if you want to know why, there are still tweets and DMs and mentions and mailbag questions about him. He gets the name bump, which I think is a very real thing. Like we like guys with names that sound funny or are just, distinct in a way, like 20% more than we should be. Pop Douglas, very fun to watch, but we talk about him in a way, probably self-included, aside from some of the advanced metrics, that it's just like he is tracking to make a Pro Bowl one day. I have no idea if that's going to happen. Kayshon Boutte gets a booty bump. Good for him. But Tyquan Thornton is just sitting there being like, I'm alliterative. Like, come on, can I get something? Because he has not gotten any playing time in the last week plus because he was a healthy scratch, as you mentioned, at Miami. And I talked to him this week, and it was a very series of stock answers. And a guy, I think, who doesn't believe he deserved to be benched, and that's fine. Again, you need a certain amount of confidence to function at that level as a professional athlete. Sometimes it is irrational. Other times it's totally deserved. But I wonder if the confidence isn't so much I still don't believe in myself, or you're wrong, or I've done enough to prove that I'm as good as I think I am. It's misplaced in a way. Yeah. And because you need to put up or shut up in a way. And I worry about that with a young kid who's had injuries, not a whole lot of functional coaching and playing around him. Like, it's difficult, but at some point you got to look at yourself. And I don't know if he's there yet, but I just look at Sunday and go, this is your chance, Tyquan Thornton. You have 2 catches for 8 yards, one of which was a pop pass. He comes in motion, ball snapped. It's like hot potato for Mac. And he ran for 2 yards with it on the opening drive against Buffalo. Didn't see another target.
Yeah, I go back to last year. Maybe you can fill in one of the still lingering questions. So they draft Tyquan Thornton. It appears they made a mistake based on the guys drafted around him before and after, late first round, early second round. He's supposed to be the explosive speedster. Like, the one strength he had coming out of college was he was the fast wide receiver. And then as the season goes on last year, it was Marcus Jones, not Tyquan Thornton, becoming like the gadget speed player. And I go back to that and be like, and we love Marcus Jones, but if he couldn't get that role last year, why am I to believe in year 2 when he's a healthy scratch he's made any progress at that position?
It's fair. And again, you talk to injuries, and Belichick was asked about Kayshon Boutte the other day, but this applies to Thornton as well. It's a very competitive group. Like, okay, like the worst team in T-ball is also competitive because you just can't get together a lineup, and that's dismissive, and it's rude to that group. But Demario Douglas leads all of the receivers halfway through the season with 222 receiving yards. Kendrick Bourd's now off the table because he got hurt. He's not going to play anymore. Yeah. Like that's an issue, man. Crazy. And it's part Juju and Parker. And again, Parker's going to be out. I have no expectations for Juju. I wrote after week 1, people on the team don't see him as a top 5 pass catcher. That is borne out where he was number 5 against Miami. The 5th receiver didn't play until Parker was out and Bourne got hurt. And so the one hope I do have, if you're Tyquan Thornton or Demario Douglas, like, you need to go vertical in this game. The Patriots have attempted 1 deep pass in the last 2 weeks. It was negated by a penalty, so it didn't officially go down in the rule book as a play, but they threw it. And Washington's deep ball defense stinks. Like, if we did the Swiss cheese analogy, the low-hanging sports commentary analysis, that would be offensive to Swiss cheese. They are worst in the league, allowing the most completions of 20 yards or more, the highest yards per attempt to their opponents, and the worst EPA overall. So Tyquan Thornton, you run really fast, right? Get downfield, and even if Mac can't get it to you the first time or the second time or the third time, just keep going, because it's sooner or later Washington is going to break, and you need Douglas or Thornton or even Jalen Reagor to be there.
Yeah, and maybe they will be, and you mentioned how bad Washington is, but then on the flip side, you're focusing on the receivers. Like, do you have any faith that like Mac's able to do it? Mac's yard per attempt numbers, I think, are 4th or 5th worst in the league. The guys he's better than are Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, and like one other guy. Like, so they've had half a season here with Mac, and we quote unquote better receivers. Now they're banged up against a bad defense. I want to believe in Mac, but I haven't seen it this year. One game, he got a healthy offensive line one game and was able to look pretty good. Other than that, I've not seen it with Mac. So the receivers are part of it, but can Mac take advantage of a shitty Commander secondary? I don't know.
It's a great question. It's a fair question. My analysis of Mac has really not changed a whole lot. Like, the guy's got a sweet tooth for bad decisions. We saw it against Miami. He's sharp underneath. He's generally accurate. The deep balls are terrible. Like, all of this stuff we expected coming out of college now, closing in on 3-4 years ago.
Get better.
Still all true.
Get better.
Yeah. It's but as a guy who, I've said it before, pocket-bound point guard dependent on his environment. Like, the offensive line should get a break with no Chase Young and Montez Sweat. But as we record here midday Friday, we don't know if Trent Brown's going to play. Like, he missed practice Wednesday, Thursday. He's had ankle and knee injuries on the same leg. He played hurt against Miami, gave up 4 quarterback hits. Not great. I excused it because he had been so terrific, and I think those injuries are really hobbling him. If he can't play, that's Vidarian Lowe at left tackle. And I'll leave it at that. Any other hope for them to kind of move the ball? Like Washington's run defense against 6 by DVOA, not a whole lot of hope for an offensive line that allowed 0.7 yards before contact to Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott. Like, you see anything with the tight ends? Any other rays of hope or sunshine here?
No, I was trying to pull up, like you said, with the time. It should be a Stevenson Ezekiel Elliott game. We'll see if they stick to that. If you go by on the season, just by its total yards is not a great statistic, but Washington has been pretty good against tight ends. They've allowed the 4th fewest tight end yards all year. If I have this correct here, looking at lineups.com, they've been pretty stingy against tight ends. So I don't have a lot of hope for the tight ends to go in there and do anything. And I like Henry and Gesicki, but I think it's a running game. I think it's get back to basics and run the football with Stevenson and Zeke and try to take advantage early on. Because I know they're bad in the secondary, but in this receiving core given Mac, I would not be confident handing the ball to Mac Jones, letting him air it out. So my hope is the Model T Patriot offense grinds it out early, get to some play action, win a low-scoring, crappy game. Although I am rooting for losses because I'm in Team Tank here. So if they lose a close game, I'd be okay with that as well.
Did you say lineups.com?
Yeah, lineups.com. You can look at specific tight end, any position against a defense. You can go per game. You can go total touchdowns, receiving, rushing, all of it.
Wow. I could have sworn that was a fake website. Like
no, lineups.com. They yards allowed, receiving stats allowed. They say
where'd you get that shirt? Clothes.com. Great. Yeah. Like I just listen. Well, good for you. Maybe I've been missing out. Maybe is it like a fantasy oriented website?
No, when you're building player props for an audience at mutstack.com, you'd like to know what teams are susceptible to certain positions. Callahan, I'm not down to listen to Belichick drone on. I'm at lineups.com grinding out for the people.
Lineups.com, where you get more than a snort and a sneer when you're asking about the tight ends and how they fare against Washington. I still have hope in a way for those tight ends because I just think Mac's chemistry with Hunter Henry is better than any other player right now on the roster. And I've given Demario Douglas a lot of props in this podcast, but you look at some routes, there's just a clear miscommunication here or a wrong route there. And those are growing pains. I've said again and again and again, you have to live with when he's your best receiver. And this is the way you've constructed your roster. I also wonder if they might change up some of the common stick routes or overs that Hunter Henry has started to run and runs a lot of, and then do some sort of counter off of it, like a deep over that turns into a post corner. You know what I mean? Like something kind of a change up to throw Washington off because they're going to see that. And I just think when Mac is on third down, like he locked on to Ramondre Stevenson at the beginning of the second half against Miami and lost Parker over the middle and Demario Douglas going deeper. Like he trusted Stevenson. That's why he locked on to him. You don't have any other receivers now. Is he going to lock on to Henry? And what are they going to do about it?
Well, you mentioned we're spending a lot of time on the offense. You mentioned the podcast I listened to for the Patriots coverage is you and Tommy Kern. Kern made a great point Monday in the aftermath. Like Stevenson's not a receiving back, and they tried to force a square peg into a round hole. By the way, neither is Zeke Elliott. They don't have that guy, and it's definitely hurting Mac. It's almost like you wish Pop Douglas could be that outlet third running back. They just don't have that guy, and so it's affected. Stevens takes forever to get into a route. There's a couple times where you're like turning around, the ball's like already out and he's not there yet. That's affected them. That lack of position on this roster has hindered Mac Jones this season, no doubt.
He's lost something too in a way that's hard to capture because again, when you get 0.7 yards before contact every handoff, and it's about a foot before you have someone coming to knock your head off. Like that's an issue. Yeah. But he's not as light on his feet as he once was, and he never really separated at teams. Like I remember studying Buffalo tape last year and talking to him about this. Their linebackers will meet you right away man-to-man. Like they're not trying to read the route and jump and play off coverage. Like they're there to meet you. And teams that have done that against him, like he can't shake or shimmy in a way that I think we even saw his rookie year when he showed up out of shape in his first practice on the PUP list. So it's a bummer because he's probably your best, second best, at worst, third best when everyone's healthy player in this offense. But I think his ceiling is higher than maybe everyone else's, but Trent Brown's as far as best player at his position. So I don't know. All right, let's get to the Patriots defense. Commanders on offense. This is the pass heaviest I've had all week. I don't know how to put this. The pass heaviest offense in the league, throwing the ball over 68% of the time. And they've been down a lot of games. They're playing catch up. No, this is how they want to play offense. Interestingly, as they rank 22nd overall by DVOA, 26 at passing. and 12th in rushing. So they're like decent at running. They just don't want to do it. The Patriots 12th overall, 18th against the pass, 7th versus the run. Sam Howell exceeded my expectations this year, but he is holding onto the ball like it is a newborn baby. And he and his baby are getting sacked 41 times. Do you think this is a game where the Patriots feast and rack up 5 or more sacks? Or let's be reasonable. Let's call it 4.
No.
Or do they bust here and Sam Howell's slinging the ball all over the yard?
And this is where it gets back to what the worst case scenario is. Like we talk about Gerard Mayo being the coach of waiting, defensive guy. Like I just watched Sam Howell. I know there was in comeback mode and some of those yards were empty, but like he chucked the ball against Philly. Like I thought he looked like a front, not a front end, but a top half NFL quarterback. And by the way, he's got a good coordinator. Eric Bieniemy now is there. Like we should have seen this coming, that he'd be able to go in and sort of build up the offense. And I'm fearful, Andrew, like that the defense gets exposed here and that Sam Howell comes to Gillette early November and carves them up, because he has no fear. He holds on to the ball, that's for sure. He has no fear. And if he has time to throw, I think with McLaurin and Samuel and Logan Thomas, like he's gonna make plays downfield. And so I'll take the under on those sacks because they have a pretty smart guy running the offense. I think they'll probably try to do some things to try to negate some of that pass rush by the Patriots.
Yeah, and this is a team, like I said, that wants to do what it wants to do, which is pass the ball.
Throw the ball.
Look, that helps
but wouldn't you agree? Most good teams in the NFL right now, that's what they want to do, is throw the football first.
Right. But I think there's a tension to this, right? Like when you watch the Super Bowl, Philly got back into that, not because it's a good idea to run the ball and play good defense, but like defenses will go to some extreme where passing the ball becomes a net negative. Like you lose the efficiency that's generally baked into your decision to pass the ball. You have a higher ceiling, completion percentage is high enough. You can get 5 or 6 yards on average when you throw the ball. That isn't there with the running game. It's a fantastic day with the running game. But when defenses swing that far and play a lot of dime, for example, like that's an invitation to run. Like you should be efficient enough. And I think you look at their numbers. Again, 12th rushing the ball for Washington. This is testing the boundaries of, there's not just a static passing is better. Like this is a dynamic that's doing a bad job explaining this. But you understand what I mean? There's a push and pull to this, right?
You think they're passing too much?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Anyway, if they're passing the ball, you mentioned Terry McLaurin, leading receiver by every freaking category. And this is how sick of a person I am. There are still some times I think I wake up and go, no, the Patriots definitely selected him in the 3rd round of the 2019 draft, right? Like he was the biggest Patriots fit in the world. 2-time captain, core special teamer, grade 3 cone time, good dude, mid-round receiver. Just take him. No, of course they didn't. After him, it's Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas mentioned, the tight end, Antonio Gibson, and Jahan Dotson, 1st-round rookie receiver out of Penn State, who's disappointed this year. All of them, though, have at least 20 catches. So even if the Patriots double McLaurin, like it's not like Howell's uncomfortable going with the ball elsewhere. Brian Robinson taking pretty much all the carries. Howell's a scrambler more than a designed run guy. Anything there register or scare you?
Yeah, just as there's a fearlessness about him. Like in watching a bunch of the Sam Howell highlights throughout the season on Red Zone, like he's just they've instilled in him like, hey, you're going to make mistakes, but just keep chucking it, to the point where you said 70% of the time they're throwing the football. And I think there are some quarterbacks that come in and they get concerned about Bill and they get worried about the defense, and the Patriot thing gets in their head. I think with Eric Bieniemy there and already a background of throwing so much, I don't think if they get behind, they're going to necessarily be out of this game. So yeah, I am fearful that he has time to throw and he carves up the secondary. But Jabril Peppers has been awesome. I love watching him play this year for this team. He's the one guy back there that has consistently made plays. And if they can avoid him, I think they can make plays on the Patriots secondary.
So the one player that I never expected to say this about, because again, this is the blah bowl, whatever, and Terry McLaurin's very, very good, that I'm looking for is Logan Thomas. Because I think with the Patriots, who rank 31st by DVOA against tight ends, and teams are comfortable going at Duggar and man coverage. Like Jabril Peppers plays downhill. If you get downfield behind them and Howell's extending a play, that's a guy I think he might feel comfortable going to, especially in the red zone on 3rd down, big body. And with the Patriots' struggles at that position, it's just a small battleground that we're going to pay a lot of attention to McLaurin and the times they do run the ball. But like, he's a guy that's not a walking mismatch, but I think is more of a problem against this defense, which is why you bring up Peppers. I ask, what do you want to see more out of this defense. Like, I want to see some swag, some nasty, some physicality. Like, you got to regenerate this season and turn it around on your own. And so long as you're taking care of guys like Logan Thomas, like, let him know after you deliver a big hit, or stick with him in man coverage and get in his ear about, like, you can't get away from me. You know what I mean? You have thoughts on either one of those?
Yeah, I would like to see them have some more swag. Like the swagger part of it is important. And I would like to see Washington not be able to break tackles and make plays. I think one of the things you've seen with Howell is that he extends plays, and they've had some guys sneak behind defenders. If plays break down like that and they're getting those broken plays, that's going to snap me watching this game, because they should be prepared. That old Troy Brown line, GTFB, get the bleep back. Like, Howell's one of those quarterbacks that is going to fire it. They'll take deep shots. And if they get beat by Jahan Dotson down the seam or Kurt, that'll be frustrating, especially against this defense, knowing if we know it, then they know if they want to throw the football. Don't get beat deep on a dumb play. Just don't.
Yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1, 3 keys, 2 matchups, 1 wild card. You have 2 keys for the Pats. Give me one.
The first key is that what I just said, they cannot get beat by Sam Howell on some big broken play. You call them more of a scrambler than a runner. He extends plays with his feet. He's not Michael Vick, but he's able to roll around in the pocket. He does take a lot of hits there. You can't let him get out of a sack, roll to his right, flip it downfield for a 60-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin. They can't afford that in this game. They're not good enough. These are 2 teams in the mid-20s in DVOA. Neither team is great, really, at anything. Maybe the Washington run defense that you talked about earlier. Don't get beat on one of those plays. You can't keep everything in front of you, because the other part is Sam Howell will want to make a mistake at some point. Yes. But if he's making big plays downfield, those become less likely. Don't get beat deep. That's number one.
Yeah. I have max protect play action shots. Like, I don't trust this receiving core to get open on its own, or maybe even within 2.5 seconds. But if you have a play action fake and at least 7 guys in protection, I would hold with 3 receivers, or maybe 2, keep 8 men in protection for all I care, between Tyquan Thornton and Demario Douglas, who runs a 4.4 in addition to having elite quickness, has to spring open deep. And again, you just have to keep taking these shots because of the state of Washington's secondary and the fact that their corners, long, lanky, generally athletic, but I don't know if they're the most disciplined. And those are the guys I think you can kind of take advantage of, either with a deep pass interference call or Demario Douglas just shaking them out of their shoes underneath and then having a double move and going long. But you need to get to those play action shots. Like, not dialing up 4, 5, even 6 of these, I think is a failure on Bill O'Brien's part, given, again, the opportunities that are downfield, and you need to get more explosive.
Yeah, my other key, I guess, to me would be, and maybe this is wishing to be taller or have better hair at this point in my life, but can you not get your ass kicked in the first half? And we started this podcast by saying that I'll be interested to see if the Patriots, how they show up on Sunday. No moves at the trade deadline.
Great
Season
point.
is teetering right now. Like, the Commanders, same thing. They just traded 2 of their best defensive players. They're circling the drain. They're playing for draft picks, but they have a little swagger offensively. Don't let them in the game. Snap their souls early, get a lead, and remind them they're on the road, frigid temperatures, their season's going nowhere. Don't give them hope. So the second key to me would be big first quarter, big first half. Do not get behind against the freaking Commanders. Get a lead, snap them out, and go home. That's it.
Snapping souls. I've never heard that before. Have you snapped the soul, Mutt? Can you tell us more about it?
Certainly have not. No. My wife looks at me and her soul snapped every day at this point. Working out of my basement. Don't give them life. It's the Commanders. It's the Blobble. Don't give them life. And I'll tell you what, when I had the big plays are going to be killer if they make big plays downfield, like a Mac pick 6 early. Oh, a Mac pick 6 by the secondary. Commanders are celebrating, paper bags on people's heads in the stands. That might get the boo birds out of Gillette. Try to avoid the boo birds in the first half. Please.
God, I think you just snapped someone's soul listening to this. That was terrible. All right, 2 matchups. I'll go first. J.C. Jackson against Terry McLaurin fascinates me because... Do
you think J.C. Jackson's been good in his return to the Patriots?
I think he was in the first 2 to 3 games, and against Miami, hell no, because he gave up 5 catches, including 2 touchdowns, had a defensive pass interference. Okay, wipe it away if you think the refs screwed him on that call, and you could have a decent case. But 2 touchdowns is not good enough. And I talked to him after the game about the first one. Tyreek Hill straight down the sideline, like he does every week. And he's taking steps forward. He goes, yeah, I was just looking in the backfield. Like, you can't do that. And you can't do it against a team that if they're looking to hand the ball off, it's a very good chance to play action because they don't run the ball. So he needs to not get beat deep. And it speaks to something you said of just force them to go further downfield, because I feel better about Jack Jones against like Jahan Dotson, or Jonathan Jones, if he's going to be out there or in the slot, like whatever they want to do. Curtis Samuel didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday with a toe injury. I don't know if he's going to play, but McLaurin is the one matchup advantage aside from Logan Thomas surely getting a third down catch. That is a mismatch, and JC Jackson can't be the mismatch for the Patriots in a way that was really predictable, like he was against Miami, just letting him go deep.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I think a coaching matchup that the Patriots have to win is Bill O'Brien, Jack Del Rio. And Bill O'Brien, I think, has been, because of all the other Patriots stuff that's gone around and their lack of talent, this is certainly a part of this, but underwhelming in his return to the Patriots. I expected more. Nobody begged for Bill O'Brien back over Matt Patricia more than me on the radio the last couple of years. And it's just been, as you said, blah bowl. It's been a blah experience so far for Bill O'Brien. Create some stuff for Mac. You mentioned Max protect play action shots downfield. Get Demario Douglas involved. Show us why you drafted Tyquan Thornton. Like, this is a game where they just lost their two defensive ends. They're going to be down a little bit on defense. Bill O'Brien, your job is to come in here, make life easy on Mac, and create some easy plays and separation and guys downfield. So it's a big Bill O'Brien spot against Del Rio in this Washington defense, in my opinion.
I like it. Yeah, and the Patriots know Jack Del Rio coached defenses and have for, I don't know, going in close to 2 decades.
Brady carved them up over the years. Yeah,
absolutely did. All right, one wild card. Something we haven't talked about, could be unrelated to the game, totally unserious. What do you got?
We'll do UConn down the road. I wanted to get your reaction to something Bill Belichick said on the Greg Hill show in the aftermath of the loss on Monday. Does weekly appearance with that show, and basically is asked about being the GM and the head coach. And I think the quote, I may not verbatim, but like, he couldn't fathom doing both jobs, the head coach and the GM. And my reaction was, holy shit, that's all you've been telling people that you do. You've had both jobs, and now that things starting to crater and fall apart and people are looking at player personnel decisions, now you're trying to distance yourself. It's somebody else in the front office. It's Al Groh's kid. Like, I when he said it, it was hard to believe that he was able to get the words out, when my belief was this entire time he was doing both and taking credit for doing both. Is it impossible, in your opinion, to think that Bill could do both jobs? Has he been doing both jobs most of his career here in New England?
So 2 things on this. One, I know his comments then or later in the week in discussing the trade deadline and kind of divorcing himself. Like, that's what we're getting for it. He drew a line, coaching and personnel.
Separation.
I'm on the side. Right. Rankled some people who used to work or may continue to work in the personnel department, knowing, as you just said, when things were going great, Belichick took the credit. Their feelings are not necessarily news or valuable, but I do think it's important to remember that, like, yes, the Patriots listen often to what happens in the media, especially when Belichick is speaking on matters that involve them. Number 2, and I got to give credit to Michael Hurley on this, because he wrote up a piece after Bill's Wednesday press conference when Bill just refused to engage with Phil Perry in any kind of reasonable way. It was kind of a jerk about it. When Phil was just saying, did you have to make a call on a trade? Like, did anything percolate? Anything come close? Like, I get the division of labor. There's a personnel side and the coaching side, but Bill is the GM. Matt Groh has said that. He makes the final call, has complete control over the roster. It comes up to him. And he just kept saying, we've talked about this 50 times. And the reason he said we've talked about this 50 times, meaning that I'm busy with coaching, the personnel department does personnel stuff, is because he says this every single trade deadline, as Michael Hurley wrote in 2020, 2014, 2010. So this is a very long way of saying those comments weren't necessarily new from Bill. I don't think he's distancing himself from failure, but some people do believe that. And I just think it's a poor way to go about it, because the question to, hey, were you close in anything after a trade, is a totally safe, neutral answer.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, or no, we didn't, but we're going to keep those conversations close. Done. Instead, it's this whole back and forth. And Phil was not asking the same question over and over again, but that was the essence of it. And that was the essence of what Greg was surely asking, because yes, Bill has final control over the roster, but he is busy with coaching, and he just reiterates this weird division of labor point every single year in a way that's unhelpful to anybody. You'd rather just say, kick rocks, or I'd rather hear that on my end, because that's what he means. So just say what you mean.
And that's his version of, I guess, right? We've talked about this over and over. That's the Belichick version of kick rocks. And I just thought, like, it for him to say that the way that he said it and be so incredulous about the idea he could do both. I just think that he has been fine taking the credit over the years for certain moves. And so you don't think it's distancing? I do find it interesting. It rankles some personnel over there. And by the way, not surprising, because that's how it was taken, that he was sort of pushing it to other people.
Yeah, it's disingenuous. And he's also said, even going back to the Scott Pioli days of like, I couldn't do Scott's job. Scott couldn't do mine. Now, do I believe that Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time, doesn't believe he could be GM and only GM? Because that's what Scott Pioli basically was. No, but he has said that before. And so he does have a full plate. It's just, he's a GM. We all know it. And whether or not you came close on a trade or not, okay, even if you think it's none of our business, just say that. It's really simple and it saves us all some time. But moving on, game pick. What's going to happen on Sunday?
I was just going to ask you. I was looking at the FanDuel app on my phone.
It's a great app. We love that app on this podcast.
It is Commanders +3. I would have, if they had not traded their 2 defensive ends, I would have absolutely said I'm betting the Commanders. I'll take the points. I'll bet the money line. And in fact, it's still so close. Like they're not so different. They're 23rd and 24th in DVOA. They both have quarterbacks go, they're both kind of circling the drain for the season. In that scenario, in a stadium that I don't think is going to be a super jammed out, like pro Patriot stadium, friends and family type crowd. I mean, tickets are like less than $80 to get in as of Friday afternoon. Give me the Commanders plus the points. I'll take the Commanders plus.
Yeah, the final score, I assume it's low scoring, right?
Final, I would say like 20-17, like 21. I don't think either team is getting into the high 20s. If one team does, I think it's much more likely to be the Commanders. I know their pass defense stinks, but I've seen them offensively put up some pretty big numbers. Mac's only done it once or twice all year, but I think it's in the low 20s. It is a blah bowl, like you said. Scott Hansen barely goes to it on red zone. We're still basking in the beauty that was Chiefs and Dolphins on Sunday morning, 9:30 in Germany as a lead into this game. I will give me 21-20 Washington at Gillette Stadium on Sunday.
I think that's totally fair. I think this game is down in the mud. It's gross. They're going to bump into a couple of pigs on the sideline and look worse than them.
Hogs, the old Commander Hogs.
Yeah, go Hogs. So I just don't trust this Patriots offense in a way that I don't think anybody should. And they've made progress. They're incorporating more motion. I got through a whole podcast almost not talking about motion. I think some people are very happy to hear that because I've just been belaboring the point, but it's an important one.
Yeah.
I don't trust them. And I don't think Mac trusts the receiving core he'll have on Sunday enough, because even as I said, Demario Douglas is your leading receiver. He's running wrong routes every single week. And if they're going to defend tight ends in a way that, as you said, allowing, the 4th fewest yards to tight ends to opponents, it's hard to see. And I think inevitably Terry McLaurin breaks through or Brian Robinson does. And this is like a 16-13 Commanders win. It's tough, man, because the Patriots can't run the ball.
Yeah.
It's going to be really difficult to move. And I don't know what Trent Brown's status is, but it's a big swing. So as big as Chase Young and Montez Sweat leaving town is, I think losing Kendrick Bourne, and I'm going to say it, yes, even Devontae Parker for Mac Jones is a real blow. That'll matter at least for one game as much as Young and Sweat leaving.
But for real quick, before we get you out, or before you get me out of here, since it'll save me the I'll still text you Sunday morning about this. But I'm not the only one who's there's betting props out there on FanDuel. People are playing daily fantasy on FanDuel. How do you think the receiving core shakes out? If it sounds like you don't think Devontae Parker is going to play, we know that Kendrick Bourne's out for the year. What's the rotation and what does it look like in 2 and wide receiver sets in your mind 2 days out?
It's a good question. Miami would tell you that it's Pop Douglas and Jalen Reagor, and Jalen Reagor plays some of the X. So he's like your Parker replacement.
Yeah.
Again, Juju Smith-Schuster was the 5th wide receiver. Like whatever Belichick wants to say, he didn't see the field. If it wasn't, he wouldn't have seen the field were it not for injuries. But I don't have high hopes. I'd be surprised if any of them got over 50 yards. How about I put it like that?
Wow. So no, you're real. Gotcha. Okay.
I think they rotate players. I think Stevenson gets a fair amount of catches, and they do go to the tight ends because that's what Mac wants to do. But Demario Douglas is the only one I would consider even going 50 yards because he played 77% of the snaps against Miami, and I think finished with 30 yards. So, and he was getting doubled. So like,
I know that was wild watching that game. They were double teaming Pop Douglas.
I mean, he's good. Like, but it speaks to the talent around him that you go, oh, he's that much better than everybody else. Lo and behold, it led to a Kendrick Bourne touchdown, but he's, again, not going to play on Sunday. And I think that's a big deal. Well, this is a big deal having you back, man. This time always flies on here. Please tell the folks again, I let out with it, but the Mutstack is growing. If people are not reading, they should. What do we got coming up? Do you know, how far ahead do you plan or talk about today?
If you go to mutstack.com today, you get my take on the Red Sox press conference yesterday with Craig Breslow. A really, really dumb storyline, I thought, that was pushed by the team and by their new president. I give you NFL picks. We talk a little horse racing, the Breeders' Cup this weekend. Every Friday, the Friday 4-pack. Subscribe and read for free at mutstack.com. The planning starts. I'm already looking at next week. Let's go. We got Belichick traded again. We're going to have some Sunday news dump. We got Mutstack's always working, my friend. Mutstack.com is always working for you. And if you made it this far, congratulations. You've earned that Friday beer. Congratulations.
Oh, you got me thinking. I have some work to do, but yeah, we might. I don't know. Leave it at that. So thank you very much. Anything, I'm trying to think like inside radio. Like you do a lot and a great job, particularly with the media stuff. And you mentioned in today's Mutstack that you might pivot and do more media coverage, but you were at EEI forever. Know a lot of people still there, some of the sports hub. Like, is there anything you can tell folks here that might surprise them on that front or in that kind of part of the business?
Nothing I'd feel comfortable air. It is the most, I say most gossipy. TV, radio, print, online. I don't have to tell you because you and I do it, if we're being honest. We gossip all the time. There is a lot of gossip out there, all unsubstantiated. So I try not to air that stuff out completely. So rather than do that, I will just say that, there's buzz about new people coming into the industry here in New England, different groups that want to do their own sort of broadcasting. And there's always rumors about who's going to get hired, who's going to get fired. But nothing I'd want to, pollute your show with, Callahan. I would not want to do that on your podcast.
I'll put you on the spot.
I'll let my buddy Brian Barrett do that. Barrett comes on, just lobs bombs all the time. All the time.
Bomber Barrett.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, get the Metric Man nickname out of here. All right, I've taken up too much of your time. Thank you very much, sir. I'll be bugging you down the road.
Go Huskies. Later, buddy.
Okay, so you guys have heard me talk a fair amount about betting on this podcast, giving you some advice, told you where to make those bets. So I got a quick question for you. What if there was an app that used AI and machine learning to suggest smart sports bets? Well, good news, and you might have guessed it, there is. And that app is called Odds Are. It's the mobile app you need to know what bets of the day are the smart ones. So just download the app right now. I'm serious. And sign up for an account. And just let the latest data analysis guide you through today's point spreads, money lines, and over-unders.